Welcome to the Peaceful Presence Podcast, where tranquility meets transformation. If you find yourself dealing with constant busyness and distractions, or just feelings of being stuck and overwhelmed, you're not alone. This is your space to reconnect with God and discover the peace, purpose, and power that's within us all. Join us on a journey to inner serenity and spiritual renewal. Welcome to the Peaceful Presence Podcast. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining me for another edition to the Peaceful Presence Podcast. And I am so excited for you to hear from my guest today. I decided to title this episode Believe in the Impossible because my guest has a few incredible stories to share that have happened to her personally and her family that will have you seeing firsthand the power of faith and how holding on to that hope for something is a power that can bring things into fruition. So again, I am so excited for her to share her testimony with all of you today. And without further ado, please welcome to the show my beautiful friend, Kim Ayoub. Hi, Kim.
Hi, thanks for having me on, Olivia. This is exciting.
No, I thank you for coming here and for your willingness to share your stories with us. I feel like we are surrounded by so much negative news. So it's my goal on this podcast to showcase some testimonies and give people hope and belief in the power of faith and in holding on to that hope to see them through something. So, you have shared some stories with me in the past that I believe will inspire our audience who's listening. So maybe we could start with your most recent one that happened to you, and it happened to you personally. And I think it's a fun example of how listening to that little voice inside of yourself that says, don't give up,
Yes.
yeah.
And it
So
goes
this is
along. Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, and it goes along with what you were saying with so much negativity. And I think things happen and we tend, when it's something negative, we hold on to that. And that kind of sets the tone for what you kind of assume the rest of, you're like, oh, I woke up this morning, I spilled coffee on myself. My day is ruined, right? We just kind of, so, this was something that had happened. We typically go out to the desert. We celebrate. We usually go out, the weekend before, the weekend after Thanksgiving. We'd gone out the weekend before Thanksgiving.
And this was this last Thanksgiving, so November
Yes.
of 2023.
Yes. And this was a big group of people that we had gone camping with. Everybody has motorcycles and dune buggies, and we had all gone out for a ride. And so there were quite a few of us all kind of trailing each other. And we had brought the kids with us, and the kids brought their boogie board along with them because they were hoping we would find a big dune. And for those of you that don't understand kind of what the desert is, this is Glamis that we go out to where it's sand dunes. And it is literally, when you are out there, very easily to get lost. They call them bowls. So you're going up these hills and going down bowls, and it's just, you really feel like you're like in Egypt, like, there's gonna be a camel walking by or something. It's just, it is, it's beautiful, but definitely, I think certain people have, a taste for that because it's a lot of dirt camping. So
Yeah.
anyways, the kids love it. They brought their boogie board along in hopes that we would find this big hill, and we did. So we stopped, and everybody kind of stops, and we take a break and have snacks, and the kids are all boogie boarding down this hill, and a couple of the adults brave it, and I don't know what got into me, but I'm like, I'm going to do it. I think I can do this. I mean, at my age, I have no business doing that, but
it was the adventurous Kim.
Yes, exactly. So I got on the boogie board, and my husband gave me like a slight push, and down I went. And this was one of the biggest hills that we'd ever, I think, that I had ever seen. As I started going down, I'm like, why am I doing this? So but I was sitting on the boogie board and going pretty quickly and accelerating my speed. And it felt like I was losing control a little bit. So I put my hand down to balance myself. And I put it down on the dirt, on the side of the boogie board. And as I'm gliding down this hill, I just feel the particles of sand rip my diamond ring off my finger. And it was my 25th wedding anniversary ring. So, pretty sentimental. And
Sure.
um, I just felt it, I knew it was coming off. There was nothing I could do to stop. I continued to go down the hill on this boogie board, and then even fell off and rolled down probably another
I think
5
we
feet.
have a video of it, so we might share that later.
Yeah, it was pretty, funny, but I think everybody watching me, at the top of the hill videotaping, and as soon as they saw me get up, they knew I was okay, but they didn't realize what I had realized is that my ring was gone. And so I immediately kind of jumped up. And this is like a huge dune, so I mean, I'm trying to think of where it could have, where up on the hill, and you're trying to climb up the hill, and it's like climbing up a snow mountain. Your feet are sinking, a foot in the sand, and I'm digging, and then people finally kind of saw that I must have lost something. They all headed down, and then we had quite a few people searching, and I was like, I lost my ring, and digging, and we were probably there a good hour and a half, and I was just like, gosh, we're not going to find it. We're hot. We're, it's in the beating sun, and finally I was like, let's go. I appreciated everybody's help, but
were you feeling at that point like, let's give up, it's a lost
I
cause?
mean, I think in the back of my head there was always this thing where I was like,
You can find it.
yeah, I don't know. At the time when we left, I was really bummed about it. But we get back, and maybe at that point, I thought it's gone. This is it. And we even tried to, what is it, GPS? The spot, and there was no reception. So in my head, I'm like, the likelihood of us even getting back to that same spot, because you're driving around, going up and down. There's no markers. You just pick a hill and you go. And so when you leave, every hill looks the same. So, but when I got back to camp, there were a couple people that didn't go on the ride with us, and the word traveled around our camp that I had lost my ring. And a friend of a friend that was camping with us, came over and said, my daughter has a metal detector. It's a child metal detector, but it's a metal detector if you want to try it. And I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely. And then she says, it doesn't have batteries. So you're gonna have to find these whatever they call the square battery. And, again, you're out in the desert. There's nowhere really to shop.
There's no battery shops, right?
No, we're going around, and we're asking people. And miraculously enough, we were able to get 2 batteries that we needed. And so, talked my husband into going back out, and we had a couple more people that went out with us. And so I had the hope, right, that I was gonna, and my husband was like, I hope we can find where we were. And we drove around for a while, but then we saw the footprints, right, of where we had all kind of been digging. So it was easy to identify the spot. So we stopped, got out. And then as I tried to use this little child's metal detector, it's like a long shot. It's going off for everything. It's not really working that well. We're doing it, and I'm just like, this isn't, again, we were there for an hour and a half at least. And so, another gave it the good try, but it wasn't going to happen. And I left there. But in my mind, I'm like, we go to Glamis a lot in the winter. I'm going to get a metal detector and come back. I mean, and we had already knew that we were coming back in 2 weeks. So I was like, there's that chance in 2 weeks that we'll be able to find it. So get back to camp discouraged, and also just thinking, half of me is like, it's gone. I mean, this is like finding it in the middle of the ocean, right? Going back.
Again,
it's
a needle in the haystack.
Yes,
it's epitome of that.
Yeah. So we leave, go back to camp. I'm kind of just like, if I'm able, if it works out, great. But I mean, the chances are just so slim. So we leave, I get home, and I go on Amazon.
So you're home. You're
so we
come back home.
We left. Yeah, that was the final day that we were there at the desert. We'd gone back one more time with the child, and we didn't find it. So that was the last attempt. So we went home, and I, didn't really say it to anybody, but I ordered the metal detector, and I was like, it's good to have one anyway.
Sure.
Just to have it. And so, and I was like, we're going to go in 2 weeks. I'll bring it with us. Well, 2 weeks comes around, and something happened where the trip got canceled. We weren't able to make it. And, so now at this point, we're getting close to Christmas, right? With Thanksgiving has passed, and we kept saying, okay, 2 more weeks we're going to go, and we the trips got canceled. So we are now into January, the end, after New Year's, and we're finally planning a trip to go out. And I don't know if you want me to share at this point, because the news that I had gotten about cancer. Yeah. So that was before we went back. So I want to say right after Christmas was when I had a biopsy. I found a lump and they determined that it was cancerous. And I immediately thought, when they told me that it was cancer, was that this is 2024, right? This is it. This is my year. I was all excited. I was making goals. I just retired recently. So there were so many things that I wanted to do. I have this, and this is it. And it just sets the tone. And again, taking that negativity and kind of owning that that's what my destiny is, right? So fast forward to the day, a couple weeks after New Year's, we finally get a trip planned, and I'm not really, I know it's a long shot, and I'm even embarrassed to kind of even tell anybody that I'm bringing because to get people to go out and look for it again, and
you're like sneaking the metal detector in the car and hoping nobody
and everybody
asks
thinks I'm crazy, right? They're like, we're not going to find this, she's delusional.
Yeah.
But I brought it, and this was a smaller group this time, and we'd gotten up in the morning and we were all getting ready to go for a ride, and we typically go to the same spots when we're out there. And so I mentioned, I said, I brought my my metal detector, so if we want, we can try and maybe look for the spot and see if we can find it. And they were like, sure, but you could say they were just
right.
We'll humor her, we'll
exactly
go, but if we even find the spot, because at this point we're well over 2 months since we've been there.
There's been wind that's been coming through, right?
Of rainstorms, right? Flash flooding. There's been so many things that have happened with that weather that we haven't typically experienced, especially out in the desert.
Right.
And so I'm like, it's a long shot. So we get in the buggies and we go driving around, and my husband is, we don't even know where
he's like, why are we doing this, Kim?
Yeah, where to start. I think we went this way where, we're kind of going around. So he stops on one large hill and he's like, what do you think? And I'm like, oh, I don't think this is it. My gut tells me that this isn't it. And he's like, okay, well, let's go, let's try again. So we go to one more hill and he stops. And in my mind, I'm thinking, if this isn't it, I'm not going to torture everybody by continuing to kind of just like on this wild goose chase. So we stop and he's like, what do you think? And I'm like looking around and I'm like, it did look different because, the sand shifts. The dunes all look very different when you go back out there. But there was like this little bush that looked kind of familiar. They all look the same out there. I don't know, but
there was something inside that was like
something inside that just was like, yeah. I'm like, yes, and he's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. So not only did we, did this have to be the spot, but now we had to find where, on this like huge dune, where we were sighting. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, if this is the hill, we have video footage. So let's grab our phones and let's look and see where we were sighting on the hill. So I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot my phone. George, do you have your phone? George doesn't even have a smartphone. So he's out. He doesn't even have internet or videos on his phone. So I'm like, our friends, they're like, oh, none of us had, brought our phones. So it was a real shot in the dark.
So you really had to rely on just this
instinct, just instinct. Yes. And so, George is so funny. He watches all these treasure hunt shows on TV. And so he's like, okay, we need to make a grid and let's start, square by square. And, he started in this area, and in my gut, I'm like, I don't think it was that far to the side, but he knew what he was doing more than I was. And I just kind of followed his lead, and, we're scanning the sand, scanning it. And, we found like a little washer that goes onto one of like a motorcycle that had probably driven by there that had fallen off. We found like a bullet casing, which who knows why that's out there, but no such luck. And so I thought, let me see if my earring, if we can how far down can we, let's bury my earring. I have a silver earring on, and let's see what it sounds like. Because at this point, we'd already been searching. It'd been like almost 2 hours. And I knew everybody was getting restless and wanted to leave.
I don't know if you can recall this moment when you had that earring thought, but if you can, do you feel like that idea to go after your earring came in through your head, or do you feel like it came in through your spirit? Do you remember that at all?
I think, I don't know.
Like
I
a
know
feeling
that,
versus a thought?
yeah. Well, my feeling was that I was out there and everybody was there just waiting on me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, other people were like sitting down at the bottom of the hill, just, finishing up their snacks. George and I were really the ones that were looking because no one knew where to look and what to
Right.
look for. Right. And I was the only one that had the metal detector. So I just thought, let's see. And maybe it was almost kind of a reassurance. And maybe it was my head saying, okay, I can let it go. If I don't hear my earring within a certain amount of distance, right under the sand, then I feel good. Let it go. It's done. We're not going to find the ring. That's closure. Okay. So we, dug a hole, put the earring in, and put sand on top and tried to locate the earring. And sure enough, nothing. It didn't go off. The metal detector didn't go off. So I was like, okay, we're done. It's just not going to happen at this point. It's not going to happen. And so George is like, all right, let's go dig your earring out and let's get back in the car. So I'm digging for the earring. I can't find the earring. The earring's gone. Never found the earring. So then I was really like, okay, this is not going to happen. Like, that's another sign. That's another thing that's in my way saying you're not going to find the ring. Like, you're out of your mind. You're crazy. And so I was like, the earring wasn't valuable. Let's just leave it. Okay, now I know. This is really, something else is saying it's done. And that maybe might have been my spirit,
right,
saying no. But obviously something else was pulling me to keep looking, because as we were leaving and coming down the hill, I kind of went to the spot where my instinct was initially, and I started, and I was like, they're going to think I'm crazy if I keep searching. So I just was like wild. Like, I was just swinging the metal detector as I was walking down the hill. Cause I'm like, I'm going to give it every last ditch effort until I jump in that buggy. Right. I don't even care if we're at the bottom and I know it's not there. So as I'm swinging while I'm walking down, there's a dinging. The metal detector goes off.
oh, gives me
And,
chills.
and George is already in the buggy. Everybody's packed up their stuff. They're all getting in their buggy. They heard the noise and everyone stops. And they're like, what was that? And I'm far enough up the hill, they really can't see. So I look down, and in my mind, I'm like, it's another washer. It's going to be something, right? So I kind of move the sand with the metal detector, and I see the top of like a ring.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still like, I'm like, it's going to be the washer. I reach out, and it's, sure enough, it is my ring. And I mean, I can't even describe to you. I was in shock. I had no words. I didn't scream. I didn't yell, but I didn't instantly feel God all around me. Like, I felt like I knew it was God. I mean, there was no question. And interestingly enough, a lot of the people that are with us aren't, Christians. And even my husband's, he believes in God, but he's not, he's kind of skeptical, questions a lot of things. And, but they're like, what is it? What is it? And I'm holding it, and I have a picture of me just holding it up, like, in just shock. So instantly, I will tell you, I mean, not only in the miracle in finding the ring, but, I had been diagnosed with, cancer. And that had kind of set the tone, but instantly in my head and in my spirit, all of it was God saying, no, that isn't your year. 2024 isn't about cancer. It is about hope. It is about miracles. It is about the impossible. You found this ring. You hold on to that, because that's your year.
Oh,
that
I
is
love
going to
it.
be your year. And I feel it is the way that I have approached 2024. It's the way that I'm treating everything. And I'm just all very positive. And I wear this ring in a constant reminder, because yes, we can go back to those places, but I know that God, this is the sign. And, I've shared other things that have happened in my life where, that I feel like God continues to kind of I say slap me in the face, but I mean, it just kind of, I am real. Like, do not doubt me. I
Mm-hmm.
am here. I am real. And, you know, it just to me was a testament of you know,
Nothing is
presence.
impossible.
Nothing is impossible. He's looking out for us, and yeah, I mean, I'm still kind of speechless about it
Well,
because it's
I
so
know how
amazing.
the story ends. You told it to me, but then hearing it again, it gives me goosebumps. And I just, it's just yeah, it is the impossible, and you got it. I actually have
Yes.
some pictures. I'm going to try to share my screen just so that the audience can see. I think the visual adds to it, and I think the video is in here too. So was that video when you originally went down?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
you can see
let's
when I put my hand down.
uh-huh.
And, when I knew at that point when I had put my hand down that the ring had come off, but we didn't have that video. When
Right.
we went back out there, there was no way for us knowing where, on that hill. And even if we would have had the video, it still is, if you, and you'll see in the pictures,
Here,
it's
let's
just a sea of sand.
yes, let's we're gonna pull this up, and can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so there you are. This is with you with your metal detector, right?
Yes. Yes. And
And
you can
then
see that when we got there, the sand was smooth, because it was, it
hadn't
wasn't a
been
busy
walked.
weekend. They had just had a storm, all the sand had shifted. So we couldn't even say that that's where we had been before. There were no foot. So all of those footprints is us all over. I mean, it's just
Searching.
a shot in the dark. Yeah.
And then let's see if we can go. So this is kind of an overview of what that whole area looked like,
Yes.
right?
Yes. So this is when it happened before. And you can see how it's just flat and smooth.
Yeah.
That was how it was when we got there. But when we were able,
Here's your video. Let's play it. So this was you
Okay.
when you actually lost the ring.
Yes.
All right, here we go.
Oh, he even gives
This
me a little. So you can see me going, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
it's like it doesn't look like it's going that fast. It is fast. It is so fast. So I put my foot, and you can kind of see there's like a little space there. I mean, a little
Right.
dent in the sand. That's where my hand went down, and then I kind
Okay.
of rolled the rest. And I mean, the distance and the speed this doesn't do it justice. It was,
Right. But look
it
at
was,
that whole, this whole
yeah.
area.
Oh
And
my,
like you
yeah.
said,
If you,
this wasn't the same day that you went back. This was 2 months later.
yeah,
And
exactly.
I think
Yes,
there's
right.
one in here where you actually find the ring. There it is. So
Yes,
that was
yes.
when you found it.
I mean,
So
look at the hill behind it. I mean,
yes.
we didn't have any idea, like, were we up, were we more to the left, more to the right? Were we, and it's a ring. I mean, it's a tiny, a small in this huge, mass, dune. So yeah,
It's
I mean, there's just
amazing.
no explanation other than God. I mean, for
Yeah.
me, so
Well, let's segue to some other stories. I mean, you have had a few miracles, I think, that have taken place, and that is definitely a miracle, but I would call that a very fun one.
yes.
But maybe we can go back several years. Was it 16 or
Yeah, it was, gosh, so my niece is probably about she's 17 now, and she was like 18 months when this happened. So yeah,
and this
about,
was more with your family, but obviously you were asked to be a
yeah,
prayer warrior in this, but it's a beautiful story and I would love you to share.
yeah. And this is kind of where so we grew up, my mom, Pentecostal in churches where it was a very strong, gosh, I don't even know the word, but we were very, um, pushed really hard into the religion,
Okay.
and my brothers and I. So through the years, as we got older, we've always had that seed and believed in God, but we just kind of steered away from him a little bit. And my mom has always been a devout Christian
Maybe
and
not
very
him, but maybe
spiritual.
the religion of it,
The
right?
religion of it, for
Yeah.
sure, and even just this not being connected really with
Yeah.
God.
Yes.
So and I just remember my mom calling me frantically about my cousin Danny, his daughter. She was 18, a little over 18 months at the time, and him and his wife were visiting some friends. and they were all sitting in the living room, kind of just, catching up. And their daughter was in the bedroom, in one of the children's bedrooms, playing with toys. And they had left her in there. I mean, they were in the living room, and, it wasn't, like she was far, she was right in the next room. And so then I think they didn't hear anything, or it was time to leave, or for some reason they were getting ready to go, and they go into the room and they realize that she's not in there. And so they start to look for her, and they start panicking because she's not in the house. And they notice that the back door is open. And so they race out there, because they had a jacuzzi.
Yeah.
And sure enough, she had climbed into that jacuzzi, had fallen in. And they don't know how long she was in there, but she was completely blue. She had already had swelling. They could see the swelling in her head. Her brain had swollen, no pulse, and, was not breathing. And they, called the emergency EMTs came, and she was on life support, but they, very grim that she was going to make it. And if she did, they said absolutely no brain activity, that she had been, under the water too long for her to ever,
regain normal.
Yeah, regain. Yeah, exactly. And so my cousin, my mom's sister, my Aunt Julie, she's another, very spiritual, very connected with God, and just wasn't going to believe that was her fate. And she immediately had gotten on the phone with my mom and other relatives and friends and their church. And my mom got with her church, and my mom let me know, and everybody was really rallying around and praying for my niece. And she was, I would say it was on the fourth day that she opened her eyes, and they were shocked, and she spoke. I think she asked like for something to eat. She was hungry, or well, she was young, so she had
gave them some indication that she
was fine.
Yeah.
And they she came out of it 100%. If not, I mean, we talk about it smarter, because she started singing at the age of 2 beautifully, and just excelling in school. I mean, she's bright, she's very much a normal little girl, and she survived that. And when it completely baffled the firefighters, the EMTs, the hospital staff, the doctors, no one. And they couldn't explain it. There was no science behind it. They're in all of their opinions, she should not have woken up from that. And it totally was a testament to me. And kind of that was a turning point for me, where I think God was kind of planting the seed back, like, I'm here, I'm real.
Right.
And it certainly changed my cousin's life, who devoted his life to, spreading the word about God, and trying to connect with youth, and really helping them find Jesus. And, it continues to do that today. And yeah, so a huge miracle that I think was the start. There's probably, if you look back, other things in my life that truly God had a hand in, but really this was one of the wake up moments where I really felt like God was like, Kim, I am here. This is a witness, you're witnessing my works.
Well,
and
I know that, we'll fast forward in a minute too, but I know like one of the scriptures that you hold on to that maybe your grandson
yes,
brought home to you was about, that God performs wonders that can't be fathomed and miracles that can't be counted. And maybe that wasn't the scripture back then, but looking back, it's like that, that scripture definitely lies true with
yes,
you and your family.
And even that scripture, right? My grandson, coming to me with that scripture. These are all things I feel that God, if we choose to listen and open up, it's him speaking to us, right? Like, through my grandson, it was just another example of him, of all the scriptures, right? That's the one that he memorized and came back to me and repeated. And, and he's a miracle.
And
Um,
let's share that one too. This is another one I wanted you to bring up. Yes.
yes,
And
that was, and
he's
this is really where I was.
7 or 8.
He's 7 now.
7 now. Okay.
7 now, yes. So he was, my daughter got pregnant young. She was 19 years old, and she had, I think she wasn't in a good relationship, and it was a very, it was a big surprise. It was a very kind of a tumultuous time for our family, um, because she wasn't really in this healthy relationship, and then she was pregnant, and we were really worried about her, but I think she was really hoping. It was kind of like a Romeo Juliet type thing where, she was, they were, love was going to cure everything. And, but I think the stress of that relationship, was, toxic and unhealthy for her pregnancy. So she actually had gone into labor very early. She went into labor at, like, I want to say 21 weeks. And we ran, took her to the emergency room, and they were able to kind of stop the contractions. And then she went into labor again at 22 weeks. They gave her medication, stopped the contraction. She went into labor again at 23 weeks. And they were really worried because at that point, the vitality, he wouldn't have survived.
Right.
And so after 24 weeks, typically, the baby can survive, but with a lot of complications.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were really hoping that, she was going to be able to take the baby to term as long, as long as she could, so that he would be healthy. And 24 weeks and 2 days, she went into labor, and they couldn't stop. So here we're 2 days past the vitality. And in my mind, I am like, here's this young girl, single mom, who's going to have this little boy that, if he even survives, what are the complications? I mean, what are the disabilities that she's going to, and, her life dedicated to this boy, that all of our lives were going to be changed, because there was just so many things that could go wrong, and so
your heart is intertwined. I mean, this is your grandson, and this is also your baby girl too, and
yes. And, sure enough, the father wasn't even, he couldn't handle it. He was young, and, he wasn't really a good, nurturing person anyway. So this kind of, and I do think that maybe, again, God puts things in our lives, and this was meant to happen because it completely removed him from her life, which was the best thing for her. And, she'll say that as well. But Johnny spent over 5 months in the NICU. His lungs collapsed several times. They were constantly, when taking blood to see if he had infections, and then having to do transfusions. Gosh, my husband and my sons didn't even want to go to the hospital to see him, because they didn't want to get attached, because they really didn't believe he was going to survive. It was my daughter and I there every day. It was heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
And this little fighter just held on. He fought, and he survived. And the most miraculous thing about this story is he is physically healthy. There, and when he, there's a lot of social workers that get involved, and they're he was going to behavioral therapists. He was going to all of these different. My daughter was taking him to these kind of classes where there were other moms that had, other families that had premature children or children with disabilities, and they were assessing him. So he was kind of at the special school when he was 3 years old. And I don't know if I even shared the story with you, but Jagan, through all of this, has been working, continued to work full time to support herself, to support her son. She's a very strong, independent, great mom. So in between her, me, and my mom, we were taking turns taking Johnny to this little class. Right. And as they take all the kids to the class, and there were kids that were, with Down syndrome, there were kids that had deformities, blind, one was missing, their deformed ear. So he had issues. There was all kinds of complications from all different things with these children. And so the parents would go into a room where they would all kind of, and it was like a parent support group.
Right. Like they had, yeah, each other
Yeah.
to
So the
kind of
parents
talk.
would all talk, and these parents were, you could tell, suffering and hurting. And I, you know, I'll never forget, my mom came home one day and she said, you know, she had taken Johnny, and she goes, you know, I just feel so bad for these parents because we have it so good. And she goes, I almost felt like I had to make up something because they were all sharing. And she goes, like, and I felt bad sharing how great he is, you know, how great he, and that's how it was. It was, he is, and he's still thriving. You know, he's doing great. He's in some, you know, he's 7 years old. He's in first grade. And they told us he was going to have chronic lung disease. He has never, you know, had any, he doesn't have asthma. He doesn't have any issues with breathing. He's a miracle, you know,
Yeah.
he's a miracle. And that was another, and I think too, my ring and Johnny, these have given me opportunities to really tell the story so that others, as a way of witnessing, right? And letting other people know, that, you know, God exists, and he's a good God, right? He's a great God. And, you know, I think this has all, you know, been part of my story to be able to share, so that, in hopes that other people will,
Yeah.
you know, come to know him and believe in him as well.
So going back, when Johnny was in the hospital, you had mentioned, you know, your husband, it was hard for him to come and be there. How were you feeling during that time? And even Jagan, your daughter, how do you know how she was?
Yeah, you know, looking back on it, it's kind of a blur, right? We were in just this, I think, as a mother, and you know this with your boys, right? I think that you just step in, and it was just, I don't know. I think, and again, I, you know, give this to God, because the strength, I didn't have time to really get to that place where I was, you know, it was just all about Johnny and my daughter, that you know, wanting her to be, you know, worried about her mental state, you know, going through
Right.
all of this. But she just amazed me. She's such a strong, you know,
She is.
beautiful woman. And
Mhm.
she, like I said, continued to work. You know, pumped breast milk and took it there every day. He had a feeding tube. And I mean, a 19-year-old, you know, having, and it's difficult because, you know, when you're breastfeeding, your milk dries up if you're not. So she was waking up 2 to 3 times a night to pump, so that she would continue to have milk that she could take to the hospital, so that he could continue to have, you know, the best, you know, vitamins, nutrients, and things
Yeah.
that he needed. And, you know, my goal, my whole, you know, thing was just to make sure that she had the support, you know, and love surrounding her that she needed, and that Johnny had that as well, you know, that we
Yes.
were there by his side. And
And
it
he's such a
really,
sweet little boy, you know. I know him personally, and your daughter is amazing and just a strong woman. And you know, your mom, your whole family, just, you know, you rallied together, and there's just something beautiful about all of you.
yeah, thank you. And
Um,
yeah, we're blessed. We are blessed. Despite these things, I feel like there's always the positive that comes out of it. And if you hold on, if you can see that, and if you, whatever you're going through in your life, you know, losing the ring, I mean, obviously that's material, but it was still very, you know,
eye-opening
disappointing.
of, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Johnny, obviously that's a much more, you know, a difficult thing to get through.
situation.
Yeah. But, you know, it really has given me, you know, I look at where we're at now and what he has brought to our lives. I mean, there's a light that shines even within my husband and my relationship. You know, we became almost empty nesters. We were, you know, he works very hard, and, you know, you just get kind of in the grind and the motion of, you know, doing your day-to-day things. And then, you know, we have this beautiful light that comes in, and just, we've, I don't know, it's,
It
you know, being a
opens you up to
grandparent.
new things, and it solidifies you as a family and as a unit on a deeper level.
Yes, absolutely. In all ways, in all ways. And so,
So
yeah.
having gone through these experiences yourself and with your family, what would you say is the lesson that you've learned that's changed the course of your life?
I think kind of just along the lines of what I was saying, I think that it really, I thought when my daughter was kind of going through, she turned 18, she had met this boy that we weren't, and, um, you know, the whole backstory with that was we had, kind of forbidden her to go out with him because he just wasn't, we knew a lot about him and his family that just wasn't a good. And I wanted to kind of control that. And, you feel like, you're not going to do this. And then when she continued to do it, and then she turned 18 and she was able as an adult to move out, and there was nothing. It took complete control out of my husband and I, with your children, and just thinking, this is the end of the world. This is the end of her life. I mean, the path that we saw for her going to college, all of these things, and just that for me, everything had to play out the way that it did for us to get to where we're at right now.
It
And
sounds like you're saying it in a way taught you to give up a piece of the control.
for
Perhaps.
sure,
Mhm.
yes. And to give it to God, because I, trying to control everything. And that's just, yeah, I'm all,
That's too hard.
oh, I know. It is. But yeah, I think that's been the lesson. And it's brought, like I said, our family a lot closer.
Mhm.
My children, I think, they've, again, they have a deeper connection with each other and with God. And all of these things that I don't know they would have had we not gone through all of these things. So I
Absolutely.
continue to thank him. And I think that's something that we forget to do, right? We blame God a lot of times for things that happen, but, recognizing why something had to happen, and the good that comes out of it, and really, thanking him for that. So
Yeah,
that's my lesson.
trusting. I mean,
Yes.
that something good will come out of it, and that is a promise that's been given to us. And I there's the expression that says, if you put your mind to something, you can accomplish all things, and most people will agree to that. But the Bible says it this way: with God, all things are possible. And, they're really saying the same thing. I just choose to believe in the spiritual aspect of it, because it does take away that piece of control that we think that, it's got to be on our shoulders all the time, when we can really learn to just take a breath, relax, and do our part, but give the rest to God and see what miracles he can perform out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just hope these stories can inspire and really, help somebody who may be going through kind of the storm, going through this part where they feel like this negativity is kind of dictating this path or where their life is going. But really, there's this, and it sounds maybe kind of cheesy or corny, but a sunshine on the other side, right?
Oh.
There's this light that, just kind of weather that storm, and you'll get there, and
Yeah,
then you'll understand.
there's beauty in it. My mom and I are doing these messages with mom episodes, and we had talked about, if everything was just going well all the time, it doesn't ever bring you to that place where you look within, you look to that power within yourself. And we've likened it to electricity, that electricity power, it doesn't work without the positive and the negative. Those two
True.
elements together are what ignite that power. Same thing in our lives, right?
So true.
It takes those sometimes awful negative experiences mirrored with, the good, and believing in that there could be something good that comes out of it, to come together and push us through and connect us to that power within. Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yes. Well,
So
thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being such an inspiration and sharing these. I mean, three, and you've had more too, but these are three amazing stories that I just felt would be inspiring to many people out there to hear. And thank you for being willing to share with us. And
oh no, thank you so much for having me. And as I said, I hope that this touches on people. And I think what you're doing is great, Olivia. And
thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And we hope to catch you on the next episode. If you like what you hear, please follow and share. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, Kim. Thank you.
Bye. You're welcome.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I hope you found it meaningful and insightful. Don't forget to share, subscribe, like, or follow to stay connected and updated on future episodes. I hope you will join me on the next episode of the Peaceful Presence podcast. Until then, may you find ways to reconnect within and with God and develop your own peaceful presence in your everyday life.